بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. We will continue inshallah from where we left off last time. In the previous lesson we discussed briefly, we went through like a first pass through the first Muqaddimah, which is basically the ahkam, the hukm. So we're starting from here today, inshallah. This is Muqaddimah number 2. So the Shaykh is saying, وَالْمَذَاهِبُ فِي الْأَفْعَالِ ثَلَاثَةٌ. There are three madhabs, yes, in the af'al, actions of creations. Or basically, more specifically, actions of those with taklif. مذهب الجبرية، مذهب القدرية، ومذهب أهل السنة. الجبرية mean those who basically believe in compulsing, that everything is compulsory, is mandatory, is necessity. You do your actions by necessity. You have no choice, no free will whatsoever. Those are called Jabriya. From Jabr is like necessitating something, or compulsing something or somebody to do something, or so on. Madhab al-Qadariyah, Qadariyah from Qadar, fate. And those basically saying there is no fate, nothing is being predetermined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, and you can see these are two extreme, like extreme sides of the spectrum. And then in the middle there is madhab Ahl al-Sunnah. Okay. فمذهب الجبرية وجود الأفعال كلها بالقدرة الأزلية فقط. So al-Jabriya, those saying that everything is like coercive and done and you have no option, no choice whatsoever, they are saying that your actions happens through or by al-Qudra al-Azaliyah, meaning God's power only. There is no other power plays any role here. With no من غير مقارنة لقدرة حادثة. So there is no other power, the قدرة حادثة, which is a قدرة power of the human. There is no, so you don't have emergent power to coincide or to be in parallel with these Qudra Azaliyahs. Basically everything happened by Allah's power, you have no power whatsoever. And basically when you do something, it's Allah who's doing it. So this basically, those are Al-Jabriya. Now, Al-Jabriya is actually branches out. This is very high level, so there are different types of Jabriya, certain levels, and so even Qadriya and so on. And Al-Jabriya, their madhab here leads to suqut al-taklif. Basically there is no taklif, no wajib, or we are not mukallafin. Then basically doesn't matter what you do. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like had a decree on you that you are going to hellfire, He is going to if anybody, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a decree that he's going to hellfire, no matter what he does, there is nothing he can do. It's basically Allah's power. He's been predestined to do those actions, leads him to hellfire. And the other way around, if somebody is predestined by Allah to go to Jannah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates his actions, the good actions, good deeds that lead him to go to Jannah. And therefore, when you talk to somebody, he's doing bad things, drinking alcohol or whatever, and say, okay, Allah predestined me to do that. It's not my option. I have no choice. And they use this as an excuse to do whatever they want, and basically, in a sense, say there is no taklif. That's nonsense. Being a mukallaf and being that you are asked and responsible for your action and do things, that is nothing. Those are basically, some scholars says they are kafir, they are basically non-Muslims, because they deny a taklif. And taklif, I'm sure you know, we've talked about the word taklif in Arabic before. It's basically being requested to do what you need to do in order, like you have responsibility, taklif, that you need to do the prayer, believe in Allah, don't drink alcohol, all those kind of taklif that you are, the good and bad deeds basically that you do. So if they deny the taklif, then those are kafir. But some of them do not deny taklif, but they still believe in that. So this is basically where the Jabriya themselves branches out. And in a very advanced courses, or if you read some advanced books about this issue, because there are just volumes and volumes of book that has been written only on this point, you'll find out that Ahl Sunnah al-Ash'a'ira actually Jabriya, but partial Jabriya. Okay, we'll come to that. Okay, then ومذهب القدرية وجود الأفعال الاختيارية بالقدرة الحادثة فقط مباشرة أو تولدا. Al-Qadariyya saying there is no predestinance. You do everything that you are asked for, or you've been asked to do. You do. It is your power. So every action is done by a qudra haditha, emergent power, which is your power, the responsible person power. فقط. There is no power of Allah here at all. And that happens directly or through like generating. We will talk about the difference between that when we come to the detailed explanation of the text, inshallah. All right. And again, those Qadriya, there are also the branches out. Some of them are kafir, some are not, depending on what exactly they say and they believe in. And then madhab Ahl Sunnah is in the middle. وجود الأفعال كلها بالقدرة الأزلية فقط. So actions actually emerge or happen by Allah's qudra only. So the mu'athir, the effector, is Allah's power. However, there is a muqarana, coinciding of qudra haditha with the af'al al-ikhtiyariyya, with the optional actions, the free will, so what we call free will. So which doesn't have this emergent power of the human or the responsible person, the jinn, maybe like also jinn or mukallafin. There are no ta'thir laha mubasharatan, or even angels, if there are like if they are required to do something ikhtiyari, they have orders, but they like, you know, they still have af'al ikhtiyari. We're going to see the difference between the necessary actions and the af'al ikhtiyari later on in the detail. But anyway, so لا تأثير لها مباشرة ولا تولدا. يعني this قدرة, the emergent power, it coincides with the human being, the responsible person, or the person who is doing the af'al ikhtiyariyya. Like generally they have power, something called power, haditha. It coincides with the action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the power of Allah, as a directive. So you would direct your power to do something, but actually what happens is, or the effector, or what affects the action, is Allah's power. All right? So our power does not have any effect. Not directly and not by generation, which we're going to talk about it when we talk about it like in detail. So basically, that what Ahl Sunnah calls al-kasb, gaining. So human's power is sustained by Allah's power, not sustained. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sustained the entire universe. Like Allah yumsiku as-samawati wal-arda an tazula wa la in zalata in amsakahuma min ahadin min ba'di. This is not about sustainability. It's about, there is a rule, or like there is a rule. It's intellectual rule, it's aqli. If something happens, there is something caused it to happen. That cause has to be only one. You cannot have two causes doing the same thing. You could say, oh, but I could, for instance, get to a friend of mine and push the door together. Yes, so basically that means that half of the push is you and half of the push of your friend. But your half is your half. Your friend doesn't have anything in your half. You exert certain power, your friend exerts certain power. And both those power move the door. But like the power that you exerted caused something to happen. That something that is being caused, the other power of your friend has nothing to do with it. So the same power cannot do the exact same thing. It's basically logical. It can't happen. And again, we're going to talk about that in detail later on. But the point is, if that is the case, then when something happens, now, what is the factor? What is the factor that affected it to happen? Is it Allah's power, or is it the abd, the servants, or the creation power, creation's power? Which power caused it? So in Ahl Sunnah saying there are two powers, but our power, the power in us, it's power of gaining, not power of affection. It does not affect, it does not cause, it just coincides with the cause, with what caused it. So the power, the actor in doing everything is Allah's power. But what we do, we direct our power toward that thing, and that is called gaining. That is called gaining. And through that, just our intention and our direction of that power, this is what we are responsible for, and based on this, we are being held accountable. Okay, not the action itself, not what actually happened eventually. Okay, so al-kasb in this point, the gaining, which is the reason why we are responsible, is basically تعلق القدرة الحادثة بالمقدور في محلها من غير تأثير. This is the key. So basically, a relationship that is established between the power, the emergent power of you, for example, with the relationship with that thing that happened, المقدور, the thing that the power has been applied to do, in its mahal, in its place. We're going to explain that in detail later on. The key thing is من غير تأثير, with no effect. So in essence, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not will that power to do that thing, it will not happen, even if no matter what you do, because your power is not really a power of active, of affection. And that thing may happen even if you didn't do anything with your qudra. So your qudra is basically not affecting anything. It's just a relation, establishing a relation to what will happen based on your niyyah and irada that Allah created. We're going to talk about that in detail later on in more advanced courses, inshallah. Maybe we open it a little bit, elaborate a little bit when we are talking about this muqaddimah later on in the detailed section of this book. But if we want to summarize, you have, if there is a spectrum like that, for example, you have Jabriya here. Jabriya, basically no free will whatsoever, and we said they are going to be two things, or branch out to certain other groups. Some of them are kafir, some of them are not. And then you have Qadariya here, also the same, they will branch out and so on. And Mu'tazila will be here. Okay, because Mu'tazila says, or their opinion, their madhab, is based on al-quwa al-muda'a. Right? We're going to talk about that. We talked about that in a little bit detail in the Sharh al-Kharida, but also we're going to elaborate on it a little bit further when we come to this muqaddimah in this book, inshallah. And then Ahl Sunnah is here. And Ahl Sunnah are two, Asha'ira and Maturidiyya. Let's not do exit, let's do maybe. So the Asha'ira, their opinion, because of their ta'rif, their definition of kasb and the irada, and how they the mechanism by which the action is happening, or that responsibility happens, they are more inclined, or more goes toward Jabriya. They are not Jabriya. That's why they are called partial Jabriya. Maturidiyya is more inclined toward that. Their definition or model of how actions happen and so on and so forth puts them a little bit away from al-Ash'ara in that sense. Okay, both are like applicable, correct, inshallah. Maybe somebody or one is more accurate than the other. We'll never know until inshallah we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But basically they are, this is Ahl Sunnah, the combination of Ahl Sunnah is basically al-Ash'ari, because Ash'ari would say, like the way I explained it earlier, that was the Ash'ari way. The Maturidiyya is a bit different. Not massively different, but it's a bit different. But basically, this is what happened is, it's just basically directing. It's something in you that you feel that you are doing, but you are not actually doing. It's just your feeling of doing something. This is basically what you are held accountable for. So you are not doing anything. That's why they called, or they are like inclined to Jibreel. So because in effect you are not doing anything. Everything is being done by Allah. But that doesn't mean you are not responsible for those things. You are responsible because you wanted them to happen. You had a feeling that these what you wanted to happen. You know. Again, it's very, very delicate topic, very, very delicate issue. And this is just a very, very high level overview of this issue. Okay. So this is basically the second muqaddimah. Moving on to the third, number 3, and this is very important. Types of shirk, anwa' al-shirk. Shirk here meaning like doing a shirk, anything with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if it is not kufr. Okay, so a shirk, as we will see, there are 6 types. Not all of them are kufr. 4 are kufr, 1 is dependable, and 1 is not really kufr, but it's still like not a very good thing to be doing. So the first one is shirku istiqlalin, dependably. Like there are, it's basically you affirm وهو إثبات إلهين مستقلين. You affirm 2 separate gods, mustaqillain. Mustaqillain means they are independent from each other. They are totally independent. So what about 3 or 4 or 5? Yeah, that also is included. So it's basically if you affirm 2 gods or more, then that's basically where you are going to fall in this classification. Kashirki al-Majus. Majus, I think everybody knows Majus. They are like the what they're called in English, Zoroastrians, I guess that's has the term used to them. But I think even the word Majus is also very, very famous. Even in English, like there's English word for Majus. But anyway, this is basically the Zoroastrian belief, like the old Iranian set of belief that there are 2 separate gods, one for good, one for bad, or evil, and they are totally independent and so on. The dark and the light God and so on. Why and how they believed in that and whatever, we're going to talk about that inshallah later on when we elaborate or let's go to the detailed explanation of the Muqaddimah. But this is basically just unlocking some of the meaning, just as a first pass, as we said. All right. The second type of shirk is shirk tab'id, parts. وهو تركيب الإله من آلهة. It's basically saying that the ilah, the God, is combined by parts. It's a combination of parts. There are components to God. كشرك النصارى, and basically that is considered شرك. وشرك تقريب وهو عبادة غير الله تعالى ليقرب إلى الله زلفى كشرك متقدمي الجاهلية. The early Jahiliyyah people were basically like affirmed the existence of God, but they were they will direct their ibadah other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we know in the ayah لِيُقَرِّبَنَا إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفًا. Now here is something perhaps we need to elaborate on it maybe later on, but just to note here, ibadah. So they do ibadah and they direct this ibadah to others than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to their idols and statues and so on. This is different than tawassul, intercession, seeking intercession of the Prophet, peace be upon him, for example, or الصالحين or awliya and whatever. This is not ibadah. This is seeking, this is seeking those intercession or those dua and so on in order to get more closer to Allah, because Allah loves them and so on and so forth. That is totally different. So you could do the same action or do something similar, but this is kufr, this is not, because the key word here is ibadah. Those who do tawassul by the Prophet, peace be upon him, or whatever, they are not doing that as ibadah. They are not worshipping the Prophet. They are not saying that the Prophet is a god or a mini god or anything like that. So this is not kufr, this is not ibadah. And this is where those extremists like Khawarij and extremists basically faulted or did the wrong, because the Sahaba used the Prophet, peace be upon him, and did tawassul by the Prophet. There is literally all scholars, great scholars, did tawassul to the Prophet even after his death. Like Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. Is Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani kafir? Did he worship the Prophet? No. Tawassul is different than ibadah. That is something else. Ibn al-Jazari, Shams al-Qurra, the main imam in qira'at. There is no isnad of qira'at wa ijaza in qira'at al-ashr unless it goes through him. Is he kafir, mushrik? How come? That's nonsense. And this not only these guys, like these scholars, there are literally hundreds of thousands of scholars who basically, even in their books, will start the book by tawajjuh and tawassul bin Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. So this is not shirk, not kufr. Those people who is using this as an excuse to call the rest of the ummah kafir are the extremists or the irhabiyin, and this is basically something that is foreign and from the true aqidah of Muslimin. Okay, so for example, Imam al-Nawawi would say in one of his books, in Adab al-Ziyarah, when you visit the grave of the Prophet, peace be upon him, you go and say, and then you direct yourself to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and do intercession by the Prophet, peace be upon him. Like he says that clearly in his book. Is the Nawawi kafir as well? Kamal ibn al-Humam, al-Hafidh al-Sakhawi, al-Suyuti, al-Hafidh al-Haythami, right? And there are so many other scholars who basically will do that. So ibadah is something, tawassul is something else. For ibadah, they will have to say, yeah, we worship that person or that thing. Like for example, when we pray towards al-Kaaba, when you are in the haram and you pray towards the Kaaba and do sujood, are you doing sujood ibadah for Kaaba? No, you're not worshipping the Kaaba. Do you hold al-Kaaba dearly and respect and holy? Yes, it is the holy Kaaba. Does that mean you are worshipping the Kaaba? No. Right? It's nonsense. When you like convolute these issues and apply an ayah or a concept of ibadah that is directed specifically for people who are expressly doing shirk, and apply that to Muslims who say La ilaha illallah, this is where the issue is. Okay, so I think this is clear. Anyway, moving on, and then شرك التقليد وهو عبادة غير الله تعالى وعبادة غير الله تعالى تبعا للغير كشرك متأخري الجاهلية. So basically they are just imitating. شرك التقليد, imitate. So and these, like the later generations of Jahiliyyah, will basically they are worshipping as their parents and previous generation were doing. We're just doing what they've done. So whereas here they have like a certain concept in their mind, they are trying to justify it and have like a philosophy about it. Those guys here for imitation, they just don't bother. They're just doing what is done, and we don't care. Just doing whatever they have done before us. We don't need to think about it. We will not think about it. They close their mind, they close their heart. We are just following what our previous generations have done, and we don't want to hear about it. Okay, so that's another type of shirk. Okay, so this is number 1, 2, 3, 4. So this until here, this is number 4 of this shirk. Okay. Now and then moving number 5 وشرك الأسباب, the causation or causal شرك هو إسناد التأثير للأسباب العادية, is basically affirming action or the effect to the causes, to the normal or customarily causes, like what we talked about before, like the fire burns by itself, right? So what caused the burn? The fire. Now you can say that, but do you say that as there is no action of Allah, there is no God to do that? And this is what we call here. It's basically that causation is only by that cause. This is what caused it. Allah didn't do anything. The things make an effect by themselves. And this is a shirk of al-falasifa wal-tabai'iyin, like علماء الطبيعة القدماء, like falasifa, the old philosophers, like Aristotle and Aristotle and these kind of and who followed this way of thinking. All right? And that's basically, remember in al-Kharida we used, or we said وَمَنْ يَقُلْ بِالطَّبْعِ أَوْ بِالْعِلَّةِ فَذَاكَ كُفْرٌ عِنْدَ أَهْلِ الْمِلَّةِ. So these basically, they are saying الطبع, the nature of thing that it's caused. So they are naturalists basically. The nature itself does that. They believe in nature. That's nature. It does that naturally by itself. There is nothing that caused it to do that or be like created in that way and so on. Right. Number 6 is شرك الأغراض وهو العمل لغير الله تعالى. شرك الأغراض, purpose, which is basically you do something not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like we all do that sometimes. Sometimes you do something to please your boss and you forget about Allah. That is shirk al-aghrad. You fall in that trap. Sometimes you do an action, whatever it is, to reach a certain purpose and forget about Allah. That's not kufr. That's just basically a sin of being in ghafla, of like the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all powerful, all knowing, He does everything and so on. Right. So the Sheikh is saying وحكم الأربعة الأول, the first 4 as we said, الكفر بإجماع. So all these are kafir. The first 4, شرك الاستقلال like المجوس, شرك التبعيض, partial, like believing that Allah is a component or parts or anything like that, شرك النصارى, and شرك المتقدمي الجاهلية, شرك التقريب, وشرك التقليد, which is also متأخر الجاهلية. These are 4 إجماع, there is a consensus, these are kafir. The Quran is clear, there is nothing like subject to interpretation there. وحكم السادس المعصية من غير كفر بإجماع. السادس, number 6 here, شرك الأغراض, المعصية, it is a sin, من غير كفر, and it is not a kufr بإجماع. Also nobody says this is going to be kufr, it is just shirk, ولكن it's a sin, so it's just a sin, but not kufr, not the shirk that leads to or mean kufr. وحكم الخامس التفصيل, this number 5, شرك الأسباب, causal shirk. There is a detailed, like those who said cause, the natural cause, تؤثر بطبعها naturally, most or it has been said that they are kafir. And be very mindful of what the Sheikh said here. When he talked about the first 4, al-kufru bi-ijma', there is no discussion about it. This one, he said فقد حكي الإجماع على كفر. There is ijma', but that ijma' is debatable, because there are some scholars who came later on and basically did not, like for example Ibn Sina. Ibn Sina will fall here. Ibn Sina saying exactly the same thing like Aristotle and those kind of philosophers. So al-Ghazali kaffara. Al-Ghazali said Ibn Sina kafir, because he is basically saying this and this. There are 3 things that Ghazali that declared those philosophers kafir by. Ibn Rushd came later and said no, and he tried to make a reinterpretation to what Ibn Sina is saying and basically find a way out, and or saying no, it's not kafir, it's not kufr, it's not exactly the same, you did not fully understand what he is saying, and so on, and others. So there is a debate about whether when you say that, is it kufr or not? It depends how you're saying, and there is a lot of debate about it. And that's why Sheikh is saying فَقَدْ حُكِيَ الْإِجْمَاعُ عَلَى كُفْرٍ. So there is ijma' al kufr, but this ijma', this consensus is like a lot of scholars said it, but it's debatable. Okay. So this is basically for what? For the first part, for the first section of Shirk al-Asbab. Those who said nature does by itself. Okay. You can even, what we can get from here is it's debatable and so on. The other side is basically those who said it affect, but through a power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in it. And this is a Mu'tazila. Again to the Kharida. ومن يقل بالكفر أو بالعلة عفوا ومن يقل بالطبع أو بالعلة فذاك كفر عند أهل الملة ومن يقل بالقوة المودعة فذاك بدعي فلا تلتفتي. So those who said, so basically Al-Kharida is saying the exact same thing. If you believe that things cause action by itself, by tab'a, by its nature, and by illa, by like al-illa is a concept that we will need to explain later on. We'll actually explain it a little bit in Kharida, and we may like elaborate on it later on. But basically, if you say that is the effect in itself, by its nature, then that is kufr. Okay. However, that kufr is debatable. Other scholars will not agree. Some scholars will not agree, like Ibn Rushd. And those who said it affect by itself, but through a power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created in that thing, so it is ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is not doing it, you are doing it. But you are doing it by what? By a power that Allah created in you. This is a Mu'tazila, this is bid'ah. Okay? Ahl Sunnah don't like that, but don't say that. Ahl Sunnah say no, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing everything. As we discussed before in Kharida, and then we'll inshallah make a revision or review about it when we come to this Muqaddimah in a little bit more detail. So Sheikh is saying that who said أنها تؤثر بقوة أودعها الله فيها فهو فاسق مبتدع. So the hukm of that is فاسق مبتدع بدعة. وفي كفره قولان. Some said they are kafir as well, but that basically the Sheikh did not select, didn't choose, because he said he is fasiq, that is his rule, what he said. وفي كفره قولان. There are, Sheikh is just saying there are other opinions, but they are ضعيف in his opinion. What he says, what the Sheikh thinks, is whoever said by the قوة مودعة, the power created inside that creation to do, is just mubtadi', fasiq. Alright, so basically all those 6 things are related to Muqaddimah number 3. Okay? So all that is about the Muqaddimah number 3, which is the type of shirk. We said shirk istiqlal, shirk tabi'id, taqrib, taqlid, all those 4 are kafir. Shirk al-asbab, it's debatable. Shirk al-aghrad is not kafir at all. It's just a sin. Alright, now Muqaddimah number 4. أصول الكفر والبدع 7. Fundamentals or principles of kufr and bid'ah, making bid'ah, 7 things, which you will see that they are linked to what we've talked about just now. The first is al-ijab al-dhati, necessitating like that a creation is caused or happens by necessity. Ijab, it's necessary to happen from an essence point of view. What is that? What does that mean? It's basically إسناد الكائنات إلى الله على سبيل التعليل أو الطبع من غير اختيار. And this is basically what the philosophers saying. Aristotle and Ibn Sina and so on. This is basically what they are saying. Again, with a debate whether Ibn Sina say the exact same thing or not, blah blah blah, as we talked about before. So, excuse me. So basically, the point here is the creation happens by necessity. Because Allah exists, creation exists. There is no willpower, there is no ikhtiyar, there is no irada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of God. God basically is a mind. He thinks about himself, and by that action, like automatically, basically, creation happens. And that creation causes other creation, that other creation causes other creation, and so on. So that's all happens naturally. There is no ikhtiyar. Okay? That's what called ijab al-dhati. So this is basically linked to the shirk. This is a principle. See that the Sheikh here is teaching you how to link the principle. How did you reach that? So he said about shirk. Shirk al-asbab. They believe in shirk of asbab, causal shirk. Why do they believe in that? Because their principle is al-ijab al-dhati, that because of the existence of God, other things has to exist by their nature. So this leads to that, right? This is the principle that led them to do that shirk. التحسين العقلي, it's perfection of mind, or basically that the mind or your intellect is able to determine what is good and what is bad, and so on. And that because of that, it is your mind or the intellect do the hukm about the actions. So basically, كون أفعال الله تعالى وأحكامه موقوفة عقلا على الأغراض، وهو جلب المصالح ودرء المفاسد. This is a تحسين والتقبيح العقلي, which is المعتزلة, the saying. And again, we're going to explain that a little bit more detail later on. I think we need to speed up our lesson a little bit. But basically, it's the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't do bad things. And everything Allah does, it has to be to get benefit or avoid like something bad, or avoid a negative thing or a bad thing or a wrongdoing, anything like that. Okay. Again, this basically is a principle that they said this has to be the case, and because of that, they built their madhab on it, which basically led to a wrong madhab and the bid'ah and so on. This is one of the 5 pillars of the Mu'tazila madhab, which were wrong. All right. وَالتَّقْلِيدُ الرَّدِيء, the poor imitation. What is a poor imitation? متابعة الغير لأجل الحمية والتعصب من غير طلب للحق. You just follow somebody, follow others, by way of zeal and حمية وتعصب. You're just you're not looking for the truth or the haqq or what is right. You're just basically following them حمية وتعصب, out of zeal. Okay. So that's basically تقليد الرديء, the poor imitation. Many people are doing that, unfortunately, as you know. والربط العادي, customarily linkage, which is إثبات التلازم بين أمر وأمر وجودا وعدما على سبيل التأثير. Affirming or confirming or establishing تلازم means like something causes the other or happens with the other. تلازم بين أمرين, أمر وأمر, 2 things, whether existing, so they exist together, or they do not exist together. If one is not there, doesn't exist, the other doesn't exist. If it happens or exists, the other exists. Is it just the mere establishing of that like relation, that talazum, that necessity relation? No, it is done على سبيل التأثير. It is basically, again, effect or effector kind of thing. Like again, the fire, and it causes burn. So there is a fire, wujud, the existence of fire meant the existence of a burn. Is it like by way of affection, of being the only affector or affected this burn, the fire? If yes, then this is basically what the Sheikh is talking about here. And again, you can see this basically, this principle is what led to al-qawl by the talk or the shirk of طبائعيين as well, the naturalist. والجهل المركب, the complex ignorance. Very dangerous, very, very dangerous. What is it? Somebody doesn't know the haqq, the truth, the matter on how it is actually. جهل الحق. Not only that, but he is ignorant of being an ignorant about it. And about that point of view, so maybe there is a scholar, he knows a lot of things, but maybe there is one issue that he has jahl murakkab about. Okay? Maybe there is other who have a lot of things that they have jahl murakkab about, the complex ignorance about. Then this is a problem. So if you have a complex ignorance about something, basically you are in oblivion, in a sense. You are jahil, you are ignorant, and you think you know. You are ignorant about even your ignorance. Okay, and and again, this is basically, if you or when you come to study like traditional logic, again, we're going to talk about it, and probably we're going to explain it also as well when we come to it, inshallah, in the detailed section of the book. والتمسك في عقائد الإيمان بمجرد ظواهر الكتاب والسنة, being like literal, taking things in the Kitab wa Sunnah, Al-Quran and the Sunnah, literally, without applying your intellect in it, in relation to Aqa'id al-Iman, the issues of belief and Aqidah. This is very important. And basically, this is where the Mujassima, for example, fell short, right? And that caused, this is the principle that led to Tajussim. Without distinguishing, من غير تفصيل, without distinguishing between what is impossible and what is not impossible. So those texts or scripture, or those texts in the scripture in the Quran and Sunnah, some of them are mustahil ala Allah. It is basically impossible. You cannot understand them literally, but you still apply your literal understanding of them. That's basically the principle that led to bid'at al-Tajussim and so on. وَالْجَهْلُ بِالْقَوَاعِدِ الْعَقْلِيَّةِ. The last one is basically the number 7, being ignorant or unlearned about the principles of intellect and mind and rules of intellect. التي هي العلم بوجوب الواجبات, necessity of the necessary things, جواز الجائزات, that there are ممكنات والجائزات, something that possible and they are possible, and what are they? واستحالة المستحيلات, the impossibles are impossibles. Also الجهل, being ignorant about اللسان العربي, the Arabic tongue and how it was used. الذي هو علم اللغة والبيان. علم اللغة والبيان is the linguistic علوم, like نحو, صرف and so on, علم اللغة والبيان, which is like all the مجاز and استعارة وكناية, all those types of علوم, the eloquence part of the language, which is about metaphor and certain expressions that has been used by Arabs and so on and so forth. You are ignorant about those, and that's what makes you don't understand the what is needed, what is meant by the text. It's all a bit linked to, for sure, the previous principle of bid'ah, and as we talked about. Okay, so these are 7 principles that would lead to kufr wa bid'ah. No matter what kind of kufr you consider or you think about, no matter what kind of bid'ah you think about, it will always go back and hinge on one or more of those 7 principles. Okay, this is very, very, very important. It's crucial. If you understand this correctly, like you are allama, because anything you read, anything you go through, anything you hear, you'll be able to understand it in a way it is, not in a way that you think it is, or in a way that others may think it is, and so on. Just not following others, for example. A lot of people just saying, "Oh, that scholar said so and so. He is right. Always he is right. I don't care what you say to me, right? No matter what nonsense that scholar said, he's still going to apply or follow him, even though that he knows in himself that it's nonsense. But it doesn't matter, because he will not apply his intellect that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala gave him, and that he is required to apply. Okay, so this is basically the fourth مقدمة. Now moving on to the fifth مقدمة. والموجودات بالنسبة إلى المحل والمخصص أربعة أقسام. Again, very, very important matter. Anything that exists in relation to place and مخصص affected, something that affect that thing that exists in a way that gives it shape, matter, or anything like that. مخصص, like why that thing in the way that it is. There are four different types of موجودات, or some like ذوات or things that exist in relation to these two things. المحل والمخصص. Very important concept. The first is basically does not need neither. Like or either. No محل, no place, no مخصص. And this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala غني. Allah غني. Sufficient. Self-sufficient. He does not need place to exist in. Does not need anything to affect him, to give him certain attributes or characteristics or change him in the way or anything like that. That's مستحيل على Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's impossible for that Allah. So that's the first one. The second is a type that requires both al-mahal wal-mukhasis, requires place or requires mukhasis, something to characterize it, give it the characteristics that it already has. And this is what we call a'rad. A'rad, we talked about that in Kharida. I think it's translated accidents. This, like philosophically, when we are talking about a'rad, this is how we talk about it. I think accidents, if I remember correctly. So this a'rad is basically like the color of something. Okay, like this marker we are using now, it's like light blue, cyan, right? Light blue. Now, it requires, it is not a stand-alone. It cannot be stand-alone by itself. There is no color blue just moving around, or see it. You can see it around. You see it. It has to stand on a that, or on an essence, something that it has to be affiliated with it or attributed to it, right? This is a'rad. So it requires place. It is not a stand-alone. That what is named that it requires mahal. So if something that does not require mahal, it is a stand-alone. A'rad is not stand-alone. It requires something to stand upon, basically, or stand within. Well, mukhasis, again, it requires why it is in that shape that I just draw, because I draw it this way. Why it, like the color is the way it looks, because whoever programmed it decided this to give it certain amount of different colors together and mix it so the colors appear in this way. Okay, so this is a'rad. For example, color and anything that is not that, not an essence in itself, or standalone essence. The third type is type that is requires mukhasis dun al-mahal, and that is standalone matters, standalone bodies, or ajram. Okay, so they don't have they do not need something to stand in. They have hayes, that's a different story, but they don't need to, like you don't need like a color. Color will require a body to fill. Your phone, for example, is black. The a'rad is a blackness in the phone, or within the phone that is attached to the phone. The phone itself is a ajram, is a body, is a matter. That matter, that phone does not need another matter to fill in order to exist. It exists standalone because that's a part of characteristic of what it is. Okay. So it does not need something to stand in it, because it's already standing by itself, but it requires mukhassis, something to give it its characteristics. Okay? Because it is emergent. Anything that is emergent will have to require mukhassis, as you will note. The fourth is موجود في المحل, قسم موجود في المحل, exists in a place, not stand alone. ولا يفتقر إلى المخصص. ولا يفتقر إلى المخصص. It does not require something, somebody else, or something else to give it its characteristics, and that is the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, very, very important. Like, I hope it's clear. So basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not require a place or a mahal to stand in, does not require mukhassis. So basically what we mean by that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not like hulul wa ittihad. He does not, he can, it is not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can or requires a creation of that he's done in order to exist within, for example. He is a that, he is an essence by himself that stand alone. It doesn't need anybody or anything else to be within. Okay? Because some wrong belief think about God as like it exists within all of us are God. Like God is basically a reflection in everything that is already exists materially around us, which is basically nonsense. Okay, and we don't believe in that. So this is basically what we mean. And the Arad, Ajram, these two are emergent, Hawadith, correct? And that's why they require mukhassis. Sifat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala qadima. It does not require mukhassis. But Sifat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-ilm, for example, knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is not like separate from Allah. Allah is that wa sifat. Okay? That's what is meant here. Right. Now moving on to number 6. Not sure I really wanted to finish this first pass today, but we are a bit behind. Are there any questions so far? I don't want to give you too much and then it just becomes overwhelming. Is it clear so far?